I'll be honest, this is a tricky one. Firstly, it's a film about real people and real events. Secondly, it focuses on a genre of music that I don't usually listen to. And lastly, it's coming out at an interesting time, whether intentionally or not. I've been lucky. With my Angloid name and thick Utah accent, most people wouldn't know at first glance that I'm of Venezuelan descent. I mention this because I want to make it clear that I don't really have an understanding of what it's like to be a disenfranchised minority, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. As such, I'm looking at this in the only way that I can, as an outsider looking in. However, I've always stood by the philosophy that any good film will make you care about its subject matter, even if it's something that you don't normally look at. Straight Outta Compton is a biopic that follows the rise of Eazy-E and the NWA, and the paths that the individual members took once the group fell apart. By individual members, it mainly follows Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, and Ice Cube for the majority of the film. This is very reminiscent of the film adaptation of Jersey Boys, where it follows the beats of a group finding its sound, rising to fame, splitting up over various differences, and exploring the legacies that the individual members left. The difference here is that this couples the musician biopic beats with the harsh realism and raw visual style. This leads me to one of the first criticisms of the film. There are quite a few moments throughout the film where we have pretty low lighting to the point where most of the actors' faces are in shadow. It works fine in the more dramatic moments, but early on when they're just starting out, it feels a bit odd. Then again, it could be seen as a form of symbolism. Now, hear me out. It could be seen as symbolism for the fact that no matter how high they rise, they're still a group of kids from Compton, and it's the whole you can take them out of the street, but you can't take the street out of them sort of theme. Now, granted, given that some of the advertising that I've been seeing, I don't know if this was because of the projector itself, where I was sitting, or if they specifically altered the color correction for the trailers. So, this is just me shooting in the dark, no pun intended. However, another issue I have with the film is that it kind of loses its momentum during the second and third acts. This in turn causes the film to feel long, and it is long, a solid 2.5 hours. This can be attributed to the fact that there are just a few incidental scenes here and there that don't really add all that much to the overall story. They didn't really add that much character either, just ancillary details. Outside of that, the story is put together fairly well, as it gives us an emotional and volatile exploration of the world these rappers came from and the impact they left on music history. When it comes to the technical aspects, I've already mentioned my conflicted views on the lighting choices as something where I don't know if it was intentional or an honest mistake. Aside from that, there wasn't much that stood out about the cinematography, aside from a few key color choices, like how everything tied to Suge Knight, and I really hope I got that right, has a red color. His car, the interior of Death Row Records, even his wardrobe. By that same token, everything tied to Jerry Heller in this film has an overall white or beige color scheme to it. As for the acting, it's pretty good across the board, but it's painfully obvious that they had to dub over the main cast's voices during the rap numbers in order to have them more closely resemble their real-life counterparts. Now, I wouldn't have noticed this if it wasn't for one brief moment during the recording of the Straight Outta Compton album in the film, where we hear O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s real voice rapping out the lyrics, and it does not match up. The difference is pretty much clear as day. I know that this is Ice Cube's son, but I noticed a clear difference between his voice and how Ice Cube sounds, so it does show that, yeah, they did do some dubbing over. Point being, it's short, but it's long enough to break the illusion, to kind of put a strain on the suspension of disbelief. Overall, this is a raw and rough tale of a group of underdogs rising from the streets and eventually being twisted by fame and greed. That said, it's not for everyone, as the brutal depiction may be too much for the average moviegoer to handle. While it was an interesting story, it needed to be refined a little bit in order to truly shine. If you're a fan of NWA, or simply looking to learn about the history of rap music, then you'll get quite a bit out of this film. All of that said, Straight Outta Compton gets a 3.5 out of 5. So that's it for this episode of Romney's Reviews. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all next time.